Good
morning, members. Addresses. Mr. Stephen Ho will address the Council on the reports of the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene. Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I now report the work of the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene during the 2022 Legislative Council session. Members have been following up on the measures to improve environmental hygiene and cityscape. To tackle hygiene and street obstruction black spots, members urge the administration to set an overall direction, improve departmental coordination, step up enforcement, and consider increasing the penalty of the relevant offences. Members are pleased to learn that the District Matters Coordination Task Force led by the Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration has launched the government's program on tackling hygiene black spots in mid-August, and that the administration plans to submit a legislative amendments proposal to increase the existing fixed penalty level of $1,500 for littering, waste disposal, street obstruction, and shopfront extension. Also, the administration has taken on board members' suggestion to set performance indicators on prevention and control of rodent infestation, and will explore the feasibility of formulating a composite rodent infestation rate by taking into account more types of data for effective monitoring of rodent infestation. Members are also concerned about the progress of the markets modernization program and development of new public markets. Members consider that medium to long-term key performance indicators should be set for directorate officers in charge of the projects, so as to ensure early and timely completion of the overhaul improvement works under the MMP, as well as new public market development projects. Members note that a number of measures will be taken forward to promote sustainable development of the local agricultural and fisheries industry, including formulation of the Sustainable Agricultural and Fisheries Development Blueprint, helping local fishermen seize the opportunities arising from the GBA development, developing deep-sea mariculture, injecting $500 million each into Sustainable Fisheries Development Fund and the Sustainable Agricultural Development Fund, and expanding their coverage to further the application of advanced technology and intensification of production. Members are highly concerned about matters in relation to food safety and supply. Having regard to the growing popularity of online food sale and purchase, members suggested the administration to enhance surveillance on the sale of food online and increase number of testing. Under the epidemic, supplies of fresh food to Hong Kong was once disrupted. Members are of the view that the SAR government should explore with the mainland authorities the feasibility of adopting point-to-point land transportation routes under closed-loop management, with a view to reducing the risk of spreading of the COVID-19 virus while ensuring stable food supply to Hong Kong. During the legislative session, members have also discussed other issues, including the implementation details of the proposed amendments to the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Ordinance and the Private Columbaria Ordinance. I would like to take the opportunity to thank members for supporting the work of the panel. I also want to thank the support of the Legislative Council Secretariat so that we can complete our work smoothly this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stephen Ho. Mr. Jeffrey Lam will address the Council on the report of the Panel on Financial Affairs. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Madam Deputy, as Chair of the Panel on Financial Affairs, I table into the Council the annual work report of the panel and highlight a few salient points. On the macro economy of Hong Kong, members are concerned with the shock waves arising from the global economic unrest and turbulent geopolitical climate and their impact on Hong Kong's financial and property market. Members urge the administration to devise risk management measures to strengthen the resilience of Hong Kong's financial market. Members also urge the administration to formulate measures to tide SMEs over the present economic hardship. On the work of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, members expressed concern about the impact of the U.S. interest rate hikes on the Hong Kong dollar interbank rates, the stability of the banking system, as well as local enterprises, especially in midst of the epidemic. Members urged the Hong Kong Monetary Authority to examine some banks' actions of tightening their credit facilities to SMEs and urged the banking sector to adopt an accommodative attitude to render feasible assistance and flexible treatment to SMEs and individual customers facing temporary financial or liquidity difficulties. on the development of financial technologies and measures to tackle financial fraud, members believe that the administration should expedite the development of e-Hong Kong dollar and formulate measures to attract overseas fintech companies and talents to Hong Kong. Members also expressed concerns about the social media ramp and dump scams and urged the administration to step up investigation and enforcement against the fraudsters in light of the financial frauds on overseas online trading platforms. On the regulation of qualified deferred annuity policies, or QDAP, members believe that the administration should review the effectiveness of providing tax concessions for QDAP in encouraging the development of the deferred annuity market. Members also suggested issuing a QDAP denominated in renminbi. Public education and publicity should be enhanced to assist the public in understanding and comparing different deferred annuity products. The panel also discussed the key initiatives in developing green and sustainable finance in Hong Kong. Members urged the administration to step up liaison with the mainland authorities so as to attract more municipal governments and corporates in the mainland to use Hong Kong's platform to issue green bonds and leverage Hong Kong's advantage as an international financial center and risk management center to develop a voluntary carbon market. Finally, I thank members for their active participation in the panel's work for the past year and the Secretariat for their support. Thank you.
Mr. Tony Tse will address the Council on the report of the panel on development. The Honourable Tony Tse. Thank you, Madam Deputy. As Chairman of the Panel on Development, I present the Council report of the work of the panel during the 2022 session and also highlight a few important areas. During the session, the panel closely monitored the administration's progress in increasing land supply. Members supported the implementation of the Northern Metropolis Strategy and considered that there should be enhanced cooperation between Hong Kong and Shenzhen on the planning and development of the Northern Metropolis. Members also examined the funding proposals for engineering infrastructure works in South Yuen Long development to provide land for housing, as well as the staffing proposal of recreating a supernumerary post of AO staff grade C to take forward policy initiatives to speed up land supply. All members supported these proposals that would help to promote land development. On legislative proposals, the administration briefed the panel on legislation proposals to streamline development-related statutory processes. Members in general supported legislative amendments to expedite land development and also gave comments to these proposals. The administration also briefed members on proposals to update and streamline land compulsory sale process to facilitate redevelopment. Members expressed concern about the possible impacts of these proposals on flat owners and old businesses in these urban areas. On expediting land resumption, members discussed proposals to rationalize the compensation arrangement for landowners and business operations affected by government projects. Members in general supported these measures and expressed concerns about relocation difficulties encountered by brownfield operations. On this, the administration briefed members on the development of multi-story industrial buildings as a means to promote industrial development, to consolidate brownfield site operations, and also to help reprovisioning of brownfield site operations. Members in general supported the development of multi-story industrial buildings, but of the view that the government should actively help business operations that involve the use of heavy machinery that cannot be operated in multi-story industrial buildings. They should be helped to identify land for reprovisioning. Members continue to monitor the administration's work in conservation and revitalization of heritage sites and buildings in Hong Kong. We were also briefed on the progress of energizing Kowloon East initiatives, the work of the Urban Renewal Authority, and that of the Sustainable Lantau Office. Details of work of the panel are set out in the report. Lastly, I'd like to thank members of the panel for their support, as well as the Secretariat for their assistance to the work of the panel. Thank you.
Honorable Tommy Cheung will address the Council on the report of the panel on health services. Madam Deputy, as Chairman of the Health Services Panel, I'd like to report to this Council on the work of the panel during this liturgical session. I'll be highlighting the major items of work by the panel. The panel has been actively monitoring the measures taken by the administration to prevent and control COVID-19. At its regular monthly meetings, the panel received the administration's briefings and discussed the relevant measures. In the light of the development of the pandemic, both globally and locally, members made many suggestions at different stages with regard to the tightening or relaxation of immigration controls, testing and social distancing, as well as a vaccination program. Members also expressed grave concern about the problem of healthcare manpower shortage. In this connection, some members supported the administration to explore mandating by way of legislation qualified doctors to serve in the public healthcare institutions for a specified period. Some members also expressed support for the admission of qualified non-locally trained dentists and nurses by way of legislation. Moreover, a number of members were strongly dissatisfied with the Medical Council of Hong Kong for having cancelled the clinical examination of the licensing examination for non-locally trained doctors 4 times between 2020 and May 2022 on the grounds of the epidemic. Some members suggested authorizing other institutions to conduct the relevant examination and increasing the annual number of sittings or quotas of candidates who could sit for such examination. In addition, some members suggested that the administration should withdraw MCHK's power to approve the admission of non-locally trained doctors. As to the fact that the Special Registration Committee would only recognize non-local medical programs whose medium of instruction is English, many members pointed out that the Medical Practitioners Registration Ordinance did not provide that the medium of instruction of the medical programs recommended for recognition by SRC had to be English. The relevant provisions' intention was to attract more quality non-locally trained doctors to practice in Hong Kong, and the medium of instruction was irrelevant to the quality of doctors. With such practice adopted by the SRC, holders of mainland medical qualifications who were not taught in English would not be able to practice in Hong Kong. Some members suggested that the government should conduct a comprehensive review of the scope of dental care services and the model of service delivery. As to the preliminary legislative proposal to amend the Supplementary Medical Professional Ordinance, some members expressed their support to it, whilst a number of members felt that the administration could explore the implementation of a pilot scheme to first allow physiotherapists and occupational therapists to directly treat patients' symptoms which had been previously diagnosed by doctors. Finally, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank members' support for the panel's work, and also the Secretariat's professional service and also their very efficient service in the past. Thank you.
Dr. Elizabeth Kwok will address the Council on the report of the panel on environmental affairs. Madam Deputy, I'd like to, in my capacity as chair of the EAP, present the panel report for 2022 and highlight some salient points. In terms of waste reduction, members generally supported bringing forward to 2023 the first phase of control over disposable tableware and other disposable plastic products. Members suggested that the administration should provide guidelines on compliant alternatives and promote reusable tableware. Members supported the policy initiatives in the waste blueprint and urged the administration to expedite the waste to energy and waste to resources facilities. to achieve the goal of zero landfill. To achieve carbon neutrality in the Climate Action Plan 2050, members urged the administration to expedite the formulation of roadmaps and action plans to reduce emission from major sources, not least electricity and transport. Members also urged the administration to accelerate the adoption of hydrogen power and enhance regional cooperation in carbon emission. There should be roadmap for early promotion of e-public transport and commercial vehicles and the use of hydrogen power for land transport and the charging network. The administration brought members up to date on the review of the EIA procedures. The aim is to shorten the EIA process for each project to 18 to 24 months. Members supported the general direction of the review and made some recommendations like further streamlining the EIA process, introducing a tiered reporting mechanism, and exempting small-scale works from the EIA process. Members supported expanding the feeding ban area to cover the entire Hong Kong and increasing the penalty for illegal feeding, as well as introducing fixed penalty for such offence. Such legislative amendments have been introduced to the Council for scrutiny. Members were deeply concerned about the drastic tariff hikes due to surging international energy prices. The panel endorsed a motion to urge the two power companies to ride out the difficult times with Hong Kong and to suppress the rate of increase. They also urged the administration to increase the subsidies to alleviate the burden of the grassroots. Madam Deputy, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank panel members and the Secretariat staff for their support. Thank you.
Honourable Vincent Chang will address the Council on the report of the panel on Home Affairs, Culture and Sports. Mr. Vincent Chang. Thank you, Madam Deputy. In the capacity as chairperson of the panel on Home Affairs, Culture and Sports, I report the work of the panel in 2022. In this year, the panel received a briefing by the West Kowloon Cultural District Authority, WKCDA, on the development progress of the district in 2021 to 22. Following the opening of the Hong Kong Palace Museum in July, the panel was of the view that the WKCD is well positioned to be an integrated arts and cultural hub to support Hong Kong in becoming an East-West Centre under the 14th Five-Year Plan. Members suggested that apart from presenting exhibitions, the Hong Kong Palace Museum should collaborate with the Education Bureau to develop teaching and learning resources to deepen students' understanding of the culture and history of China. The panel discussed about the number of cultural and leisure sports works projects. Members were of the view that the Heritage Conservation and Resource Centre and the new Territories East Cultural Centre were significant cultural facilities and are conducive in enhancing Hong Kong's position as an East-West Centre. The panel also supported the construction of Yau Ma Tei Theatre Phase 2 and urged the administration to develop it into a cultural landmark and a tourist attraction. It should be combined with historical buildings in the vicinity to create a better ambience. In addition, the panel supported the redevelopment of Yuen Long Stadium. Members opined that the redevelopment would upgrade it to a venue for international football matches and large-scale athletic events, which would be beneficial to sports development in Hong Kong. The panel was deeply concerned about the progress of the youth hostel scheme. Apart from giving support to the Hong Kong Association of Youth Development for constructing a youth hostel in Mong Kok, members asked the administration to speed up the implementation process of the project in order to meet the demand for youth hostel places. The panel discussed about work progress of the Community Care Fund, refinement of the rural representative election arrangements, and the investigation report on the mirror concert incident on the 28th of July at the Hong Kong Coliseum. Members asked the LCSD to explore all feasible measures to prevent recurrence of similar incidents. And they asked the LCSD to discuss with the industry about implementation details of the enhancement measures set out in the report so as to protect performers and staff members. I so submit.
Martin Liao will address the Council on the reports of the Panel on Administration of Justice and Legal Services. Mr. Martin Liao. Madam Deputy, as the Chairman of the Panel on Administration of Justice and Legal Services, I now submit the panel's work report this year. During this legislative session, members of the panel continue to exchange views on policy matters in relation to administration of justice and legal services. Policy measures under the DOJ's remit include promoting and facilitating wider use of law tech, reports on Hong Kong Legal Week 2021, and briefing on the Asian African Legal Consultative Organization Hong Kong Regional Arbitration Center. Members were particularly concerned about the government's policy measures on promoting rule of law, including the Vision 2030 for rule of law, and the various education programs and activities for promoting the concept to the public. On matters in relation to the judiciary, the panel has received briefings by the Judiciary Administration on its plan to build a district court building at Caroline Hill Road, and on the proposed pay adjustment for judicial officers in year 2022 to 23. The two proposals were supported by members of the panel and passed by the Financial Committee at its meetings. On the other hand, the panel continued to receive and advise on various legislative proposals put forward by the administration, including the Arbitration and Legal Practitioners Legislation, Outcome-Related Fee Structures for Arbitration Amendments Bill 2022, and the Arbitration Outcome-Related Fee Structures for Arbitration Rules, the Mainland Judgments in Civil and Commercial Matters Reciprocal Enforcement Bill, and Mainland Judgments in Civil and Commercial Matters Reciprocal Enforcement Rules. The first three bills and the first set of rules have been passed by the Council. Also, the Judiciary has consulted members on the legislative proposal of the Family Procedure Bill. On law reform, the administration briefed the panel on the implementation progress of the various recommendations made by the Law Reform Commission, as well as the progress on systematic review of statutory laws of Hong Kong. In addition, with this legislative session, the Subcommittee on Cybercrime of the LRC has consulted members' views in relation to the consultation paper on cyber-dependent crimes and jurisdictional issues. Madam Deputy, the details of the panel's work is set out in the written report. I shall submit.
Mr. So Chang-wing will address the Council on the report of the Panel on Public Service. Mr. So Chang-wing. Madam Deputy, as Deputy Chair of the Panel on Public Service, I report to this Council the work of the panel this year. In recent years, there's been a widening gap between the civil service establishment and strength, drastic increase in the resignation rate of civil servants, and fewer applications in recruitment exercises. Members were gravely concerned, and members urged the administration to make early recruitment planning and arrangement, streamline the recruitment process, and fill the vacancies as soon as possible to ensure sufficient manpower to serve the public. In order to attract and retain talents, especially grades with recruitment difficulties, members suggested that the administration should step up the promotional efforts in recruitment, facilitate Hong Kong students in mainland universities to apply for civil service jobs, legislate to protect public officers enforcing the laws from being insulted in carrying out their duties, make reasonable civil service pay adjustment, and enhance medical benefits. For example, taking out medical insurance policies for civil servants. At the same time, the administration should review the individual department's overall manpower situation and harness technologies to enhance work efficiency so as to address the heavy workload and boost morale. Members also expressed concern about the continuous increase in the directorate strength in the age group of 50 or above. Members supported the implementation of a new selection and appointment mechanism for senior levels of the civil service, under which vacancies at the directorate ranks could be filled through internal promotion or by open recruitment, so as to widen the pool of candidates for selection for directorate posts requiring more demanding public administration competencies and those with succession difficulties. However, in the long run, members were of the view that succession plans must be devised so that adequate civil servants of suitable caliber can be identified for grooming and training to be successors of the grade. On training, members considered it vital for civil servants to acquire an accurate understanding of the basic law, the Constitution, the national security law, as well as national affairs. The administration should uphold the quality of speakers and trainers as well as the contents of the relevant programs. The administration should step up liaison with the civil servants in the mainland and increase the training places for senior civil servants on national affairs and key policies. Some members suggested that the administration should provide training opportunities at overseas renowned institutions for civil servants to widen their international horizons. Discipline and conduct are key to ensuring the efficiency of civil service. Members urged the administration to improve the performance management measures in the civil service, draw up key performance indicators, accurately appraise the performance of civil servants, introduce the 360-degree performance appraisal approach, invite public participation in the assessment, expedite determination of persistent substandard performers, as well as develop a performance-linked pay policy and system. Finally, I thank panel members for their support of the panel in the past year, and also the Secretariat for their support of the panel. I so submit.
Questions. Question 1. Dr. Honorable Hui Lee. Thank you, Madam Deputy. It's been reported that a renowned Chinese structural biologist announced earlier on that she would resign from her teaching position at a university in the United States and return to China to take up the post of founding dean of the Shenzhen Medical Academy of Research and Translation. It's learned that some universities in Hong Kong had also made efforts to invite the biologist to join them, but ultimately failed. On the other hand, one of the key foci of the latest policy address is to compete for talents, actively recruiting talents from the mainland and overseas. In this connection, will the government inform this Council 1 of the differences and similarities in respect of the government's strategies and efforts to recruit talents from the mainland and from overseas? 2. As it has been reported that Shenzhen provides talents with guaranteed huge amount of funding, generous accommodation subsidies, assurance of autonomy, other complementary services, etc., whether the government will follow the practices of neighboring regions such as Shenzhen and Singapore in competing for talent. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. And 3. As the aforesaid instance has demonstrated that it will be difficult to have the strongest competitive edge in competing for talent when relying solely on the strength of a single university or institution, whether the government will, in future, consider supporting and stepping up the collaboration with various local universities and industries in recruiting talents. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. Thank you. Secretary for Labour and Welfare. Madam Deputy, in consultation with the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau, Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau, the Innovation, Technology and Industry Bureau, and the Education Bureau, the consolidated reply to the question raised by Mr. Lee is as follows. 1. The 2022 policy address announced a package of initiatives to proactively draw for talents from around the world. We formulated different admission schemes to draw for talents from different backgrounds and professions to come here. These schemes are in general applicable to both mainland and overseas talents. The streamlined admission scheme for mainland talents and professionals and the extension of the immigration arrangements for non-local graduates to graduates from Hong Kong universities in the Greater Bay Area are, however, designated for mainland talents only. Taking into account the background, professional experience, and location of the target groups under various schemes, we will formulate corresponding publicity and recruitment strategies to reach them through different channels. The Talent Service Unit, to be set up soon, will be responsible for formulating strategies to recruit talent from the mainland and overseas, implementing and coordinating relevant attraction work, and provision of one-stop support for incoming talents. Besides, the mainland offices and overseas economic and trade offices, ETOs, will set up the dedicated teams for attracting businesses and talents to engage talents. In addition to the usual offline publicity and promotion, we'll make the best use of online platforms, social media, and electronic messaging system commonly used by individuals overseas and on the mainland to reach out to people in regions with no ETOs. We will send messages to these groups according to their background and experience on development opportunities here, details of admission schemes and support services, etc. All in all, our strategy is to customize messages as far as possible, and the manner of such messages will be tailored to match the habits of users and cater for their different interests. The online platform and social media used by mainlanders and overseas individuals are different. We'll set up dedicated accounts to prepare for our work. We will also connect with user groups on different platforms to expand our network and to facilitate our work. Different countries or regions formulate different strategies according to their own circumstances. When formulating measures, Hong Kong has drawn reference from practices of other places. We draw up solutions to achieve the objective of addressing the manpower shortage in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's manpower shortage covers workers of different skill levels in different trades. Owing to the huge demand for talent, we will not consider providing financial incentives or accommodation subsidies, etc., for talent coming to Hong Kong. We believe that Hong Kong's inherent advantages and opportunities are still very attractive. However, global competition in specific streams is fierce. The government is prepared to implement measures including financial incentives to strengthen our attractiveness for strategic industries. In relation to innovation and technology industry, the policy address this year has announced the collaboration with the Office for Attracting Strategic Enterprises to provide special measures in a targeted manner to attract leading I&T talents around the globe, to enhance the existing technology talent schemes, to increase accommodation support, and to expand the STEM internship scheme. The government will continue to improve the ecosystem to develop Hong Kong into an international I&T center and to enhance relevant measures to retain I&T talents. 3. The government is committed to supporting the collaboration within universities and industries here and to enhance our competitiveness in recruiting I&T talents in different fields for the continued development of research environment. The measures we have are 1. Policy address in this year has announced that our 10 billion research, academic and industry sector 1+ scheme will be launched. It will fund research teams in universities on a matching basis for them to become startups. The aim is to promote a from one to end transformation of R&D outcomes. The Global STEM Professorship launched in 2021 is welcomed by universities. Around 80 out of the 100 places have been awarded. 3. To actively nurture research talents, the policy address proposed an increase in the number of publicly funded research postgraduate places to 7,200 with effect from 2024-25 year, coupled with the gradual relaxation of the over-enrollment ceiling of these places from 70% to 100%, the capacity will increase by more than 50%. 4. The government injected $20 billion into the Research Endowment Fund in 2019, bringing the total to $46 billion. The investment return generated for the Research Grants Council to cater for increasing demand. The overall budget for the RGC-funded projects in 2022-23 is about $2.27 billion, which is an increase of over 70% before the injection. In 2019, the government has also introduced a $3 billion research matching grant scheme to incentivize the private sector to strengthen financial support for R&D. We will monitor the implementation of these measures and keep track of relevant developments in other places. Appropriate adjustments will be made as needed. Mr. Lee. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I have 2 questions. You can only ask 1 supplementary question. Thank you. I heard from the administration that they've done a lot, but there is no targeted measures on INT, especially the top-notch talents. We talk about opening the doors and giving them sufficient information, but they are not real measures to compete for talents. We should be aggressive. We should be proactive. So I'd like to ask the administration, what specific measures do we have to target top-notch INT talents so that they will come to Hong Kong? Secretary. Undersecretary for Innovation, Technology and Industry. I thank Mr. Lee for his question. Of course, for the development of INT talent is very important. Top-notch talent is our focus. For these leading figures, we have 2 measures. First, for fundamental research talents, as suggested in the reply, we have the Global STEM Professorship Scheme. There is a matching fund providing significant funding to universities to attract these esteemed professors to lead their team to come to Hong Kong. We are also proactive. Universities go to different research institutions and different universities to scout for talents. So we're not sitting there to wait for talents to come. There are about 70 or so esteemed professors that have come to Hong Kong. The other measure is about industries. We have a scheme to attract talents to take the lead in Hong Kong to develop our industries. We have tailor-made schemes to provide tax measures, visa, facilitation measures, application for space and land. The work is not just taken up by the government. We work with the Science Park, Cyberport, and research institutes, as well as the trade, to try to attract talents from all over the world. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. The BPA. Madam Deputy, the BPA has been emphasizing that in order to attract talents to come to Hong Kong needs to think out of the box. It's not just to attract them to come to Hong Kong to work for a few months. They need to be given a sense of achievement and also to feel that Hong Kong is a place for them to settle. In the Secretary's reply, he said that Hong Kong has inherent advantages that are very attractive. We don't need to do more in terms of providing accommodation. I don't agree. Let's look at our neighbors. Just now, last month, Shenzhen launched accommodations measures to provide 4,000 units at about 60% of the market rate to attract talents. We need to draw reference from that. We should not rest on our laurel, thinking that we already have our advantages and our allure, and that there are plenty of opportunities. We need to think out of the box. We need to be innovative. We need to compete for talents by offering better terms. Apart from offering stamp duty refund, can the administration mirror the measures of Shenzhen by providing affordable accommodation to talents? Secretary, I thank Mr. Lam for his suggestion. In formulating strategies to attract talents, we have indeed drawn reference from overseas practices, especially practices adopted by our neighbors. But these measures might not be suitable to Hong Kong. When we formulate measures, we need to take into account the local situation and our inherent advantages. For us, the overall strategy is to build on our inherent advantages. That is, we have the support of the mainland. We're well connected to the rest of the world. We want to attract aspiring talents to come to Hong Kong. We don't think it's appropriate to offer cash incentives or accommodation subsidies. But for targeted groups, say innovation and technology, we have tailored schemes to attract leading figures from the industry. Mr. Martin Liu. Madam Deputy, when it comes to figures of the admission scheme for mainland talents and professionals, for those engaged in artificial intelligence and analytics, we have measures to attract them. But for some other areas, say biotechnology, internet security, there are fewer applicants. What measures do you have to attract talents from different fields to come to Hong Kong? Who is to answer the question? Undersecretary for Innovation, Technology and Industry. Thank you. I thank the member for the suggestion. In terms of INT talent admission scheme, we cover AI, analytics, biotechnology, robotics, as well as other areas. The fields mentioned by the members are emerging industries that we need to work on. Sorry, can you hear me? Please hold. Mr. Liu, I didn't quite catch what she said. I will raise my voice a bit. Please speak into the microphone. Perhaps I will continue. In relation to the fields mentioned by the member, they are our target areas we would like to attract talents to come to Hong Kong. Can you hear me now? Yes, it's much better. In relation to the fields mentioned by the member, they are areas of our focus that we would like to expand further. We have a number of measures. What's crucial is that we have to have a mature ecosystem. Say, for example, analytics. Can we establish a data park, because the talents will follow the ecosystem. In terms of biotechnology, it is also an important area. We hope that in these fields we are able to attract enterprises and talents to come to Hong Kong. With enterprises settling in Hong Kong, then they will attract talents. We also have supporting measures. Say, for example, in the technology admission scheme, we also have the dedicated team for attracting businesses and talents. reaching out to talents in a targeted way to ask them to come to Hong Kong. Mr. Liu, can I ask the Undersecretary to give me her reply in a written form because her voice was too soft and she was speaking too quickly? I asked the Bureau to handle Mr. Liu's request in a specific way. Well, because of the use of the microphone, I asked Secretary for you to submit your reply in written form to Mr. Liu. Ms. Nixie Lam, for top-notch talents, what can attract them is not just money. They look for other things as well. Say, for example, whether it is a stage for them to tap into their potential and to shine. So has the administration taken into account the characteristics of the different fields to formulate specific measures to attract talents? Secretary for Labour and Welfare, under the 14th Five-Year Plan, our country has already mapped out the development direction of 8 centers. So we will follow the direction of the 8 centers that includes innovation and technology, culture, arts, legal, as well as financial services. We will actively attract talents to come to Hong Kong. The most important thing is to tell a good story of Hong Kong. We have strong inherent advantages. But for people to understand, apart from our advantages, we need to make them aware of our advantages. We do need to be proactive. Mr. Sunny Tan. Thank you, Madam Deputy. There are a number of innovative measures suggested in the policy address. There is a lot of work done to attract talents. I'm grateful and I welcome them. For reindustrialization, to dovetail the development of Northern Metropolis and to turn Hong Kong into an INT center, we do need a large amount of talents as well as technology and professionals. Will they enhance the admission scheme for mainland talents and professionals? Will they enhance the talent list to attract more talents from innovation and technology? Just now, Mr. Tan asked if we would enhance our talent list. I'm sure you understand that the talent list is done on an individual basis under the Quality Migrant Admission Scheme. As to the use of talents and list to be used in general employment policy or the admission scheme for mainland talents and professionals, so that the list becomes a list of trade. Well, that will be difficult. Currently, there are 13 types under the talents list. We have started our work to review the list. We hope that before the first quarter of next year, we'll be able to complete our work so that in around the second quarter, we'll be able to implement an expanded and updated talent list. We hope that this will better address our manpower shortage and to make better use of our existing admission schemes to help different industries and to boost our economic vitality. Mr. Duncan Chiu. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Just now, the Secretary talked about inherent advantages and our attractions. I'm very disappointed. If we are to develop ourselves into an innovation and technology center, it doesn't mean that we have to rely on our inherent advantages. We have to start afresh. For Hong Kong to become an innovation center for financial services, we should be innovative. The Secretary talked about expansion of the quality migrant admission schemes. Apart from specific fields, we need to expand the net. There are questionnaires from the administration asking if members of a certain institute or association would like to come. There should not be any qualification before you ask them to come to Hong Kong. Perhaps after the meeting, I will talk to Mr. Chiu to get a better understanding. I would like to make it clear that under the policy address, there are a number of measures, including Top Talent Pass scheme and a number of improvement measures. They are transparent and clear. So I'd like to talk to Mr. Chiu about how to better use the suggestions in the policy address to do our work better and to help Hong Kong.
易志明議員。
Next question, Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, Madam Deputy. With the commencement of the works in the development areas like Hong Shui Kiu, Hachun, and Yuen Long South, the government has proceeded with large-scale resumption of brownfield sites. There are views that a considerable portion of brownfield operations, including logistics warehouses, open storage, and vehicle maintenance, are very important for the logistics industry. If the operators are unable to identify sites for relocation, they will be forced to close down, seriously affecting the logistics supply chain. Will government inform this council, one, of the progress of brownfield site resumption and clearance, including the areas of land resumed and to be resumed, and a breakdown of the number of operators by business, whether over the past year the government assisted the operators in identifying sites for relocation, if so, of the area involved, and a breakdown of the number of operators by business, if not, the reasons for that. 2, as it is learned that the DEVB will provide a list of usable land for reference by the operators. When will this be published, and whether the DEVB will provide a one-stop service to assist the operators in completing the procedure for land application? And 3, whether the government will consider deferring land resumption when it is unable to provide relocation sites or premises for the brownfield operators in a timely manner so as to avoid a disruption to the logistics chain. Secretary for Development. Madam Deputy, among a total of around 1,600 hectares of brownfield sites in the NT, more than 60%, i.e. around 1,000 hectares, will gradually be developed for high-density housing and other uses due to reasons such as being located within development areas or the open-air operations are incompatible with the environment and development of the neighborhood. Through development, we hope to make better use of these precious land resources and enhance land use efficiency of these sites. My replies are as follows. Over the years, the government has resumed and cleared about 30 hectares of brownfield sites for various development projects involving around 400 affected brownfield operators. Regarding types of businesses, around 120 are warehouses, storage, and logistics businesses. Around 110 are general workshops, around 70 are construction related, around 40 are vehicle repairing and related industries. The remaining are waste recycling and vehicle parking industries. We expect that another 200 hectares of brownfield sites will gradually be resumed and cleared by the government from now till 2026. The government will provide monetary compensation to affected business operators in accordance with the prevailing policies. If they are also the owners of the relevant sites, we will also provide compensation for the land resumed. In this regard, the government enhanced in May the ex-gratia compensation arrangements for business operators and landowners, including relaxing the eligibility criteria on the operation duration, removing the payment ceiling of open-air business undertakings, and merging the 4 zones under the ex-gratia zonal compensation system into 2. In addition to monetary compensation, the Development Bureau is adopting the following measures to assist operators who wish to re-establish their businesses elsewhere. including one, arranging the Lands Department to reach out to the affected operators at the soonest possible juncture, providing them with a more concrete departure time frame and various means of assistance the government could offer, and to provide appropriate assistance with reference to the preference of the operators. 2, strengthening supervision and coordination of various departments in providing advice on planning and lands matters to operators, and helping them by expediting application processes to facilitate early relocation of business to alternative sites. With regard to cases where coordination was required, from July 2019 to November 2022, we've assisted 21 business operators from industries such as logistics, vehicle repairing, timber production, and construction in obtaining planning permission involving some 20.5 hectares of relocation sites. The government also granted waivers to 17 operators to erect structures on their relocation sites. 3, stepping up the consolidation and provision of reference information on sites that are more likely feasible in accommodating brownfield operators. Our target is to provide such information by the first quarter of 2023. If affected operators are interested in these sites, the EVB will coordinate departments to provide assistance as set out above. 4, identifying more suitable government land for letting to affected brownfield operators for short-term tenancy. From December 2020 to November this year, the government has granted 8 sites with a total area of 18,500 square meters and is processing the tender of another 3 sites, with uses being industrial, open storage, vehicle repairing workshops, and warehouses. With a total area of 4,500 square meters, we will continue to identify more land. 5, taking forward the development of multi-story buildings for modern industries and take opportunity to require enterprises developing these buildings to set aside some floor space for the government to take up. The government will lease this designated floor space to affected brownfield operators for a specific period at a rental comparable with the prevailing market rental of the brownfield sites, so as to assist them in upgrading their operations. We will commence the tendering of 5 sites at Hong Shui Kiu and Yuen Long from next year onwards. Part 3. There is a need for the government to continue pressing ahead with land supply to address the needs of society for housing and economic development. We will closely liaise with the landowners and business operators when proceeding with the clearance work. Where the works program allows, we will defer the date of clearance for instance, allowing business operators to continue occupying the sites with land ownership reverted to the government until the actual departure deadline, rent-free. Regarding disbursement, the EVB will, as one of the measures in the legislative amendments to streamline development processes, specify that the government may commence the arrangement to revert land ownership and disbursement of compensation as early as possible after the relevant land resumption plan is authorized by the CE in Council, without having to wait for the authorization of the expenditure. With a view to enhancing the practice of making disbursement only nearer the time when business operators depart, we will strive to implement the measure to take forward the policy directive of providing monetary compensation in parallel with facilitation service and step-up handling of cases. Mr. Frankie Yik. Madam Deputy, as I said, at the early part of next year, there will be a large-scale resumption of brownfield sites. The operators are really desperate. They urge the government to relocate them before clearance. I understand that this is a bit difficult in this day and age. That the Secretary mentioned short, medium-term, and long-term measures. Like in Para 3, you will try to defer the date of clearance without driving them away straight away. And in 2.3, there is provision of reference information for them to make an application. And the Secretary has been doing a lot for the sector. She has loosened up a lot of the rules and regulations. Now we hope that there will be formulation of logistics policy, and in his policy address, the chief executive said that the TLB should formulate the blueprint for logistics development, but my trade has never received anything in this regard. So I hope that the Secretary will make this request with the TLB and sit down with the trade to talk about the long-term development, and I hope that there will be policies to be formulated to support the logistics. If the logistics supply chain is disrupted, there will be profound impact. This is taking up 20% of GDP with workforce of 700,000 people. There will be grave impact. Secretary. Madam Deputy, as Mr. Yik said, the logistics policy is under the purview of the TLB. The Development Bureau is cooperating with land supply. As we said at the panel, at Hong Shui Kiu and Yuen Long South, we have set aside land for the multi-story buildings for modern industries. We are talking about 70 hectares in total, with Northern Metropolis and coming on stream. I'm sure that there will be more land becoming available. As to what industries will the land be devoted to, how much will be devoted to the logistics, we are prepared to have regard to the views of the TLB. Mr. Edwin Lau. Madam Deputy, when the government is developing the Northern Metropolis, they must have a comprehensive plan. They have to resume the brownfield sites for housing development, and I do appreciate that. But these brownfield operators are making contribution to our economy, and they're providing job opportunities. If they are driven out of existence, it would be really too much of a shame. We're running out of land in Hong Kong. 70% of land is not utilized. And my question for the administration is, will the government be developing land like 16,000, the Green Belt? Now we have 1,600 brownfield sites. If you can release 1 or 10% of the Green Belts, you will be able to accommodate all these operators. Will the government be developing new sites for this purpose? Secretary. Madam Deputy, now Mr. Lau referred to the Green Belts. Indeed, we have 16,000 hectares of Green Belt. We said that half of them are in a steep terrain, and they're in the middle of nowhere. It is difficult to have any potential, but for the remaining 8,000 hectares, we are examining these. There are 200 that will be used for housing development. For the remaining sites, we will review them. The review exercise will be completed next year. But from a practical point of view, now for these Green Belt sites, if we develop them to accommodate the brownfield operators, I'm sure that there will be some difficulties, because if the Green Belts are located in the vicinity of the convenient locations, I'm sure that they must have been teased out for the urgent housing development. If they are not close to road infrastructure, the formation costs would be much higher. Is it appropriate for the brownfield operators to use as alternative sites? But that is as it may. We are examining this together with the Environment and Ecology Bureau, about 4,000 hectares of agricultural sites. We will identify some prime location, prime agricultural sites, but there will be some sites that will be remaining that can be used for the development of multi-story buildings for modern industries. I'm sure that would help the open-air brownfield operators. Ms. Chen Yutming. Thank you, Madam Deputy. As Hong Shui Kiu, Yuen Long South, and Kwu Tung North are being developed. A lot of the brownfield operators will have to move, like the timber plant, will have to move to Taguling, close to Menkam Toh. If the brownfield operators will have to move closer to the border, and we're going to be developing the economic belt near the border, they will have to be moved once again. I know that the brownfield operators are important to logistics. Secretary, do you have any plan to identify sites for a brownfield park, a brownfield operators park for them to be accommodated in? Secretary. Well, I think Ms. Chen's question shows that the relocation of the brownfield operators will give rise to other problems. As much as we want to assist them, their relocation will give rise to other problems. So all in all, we hope that unless the brownfield operators have to be in open air operation, like the heavy duty crane operators, for other brownfield operators, we would encourage them in the long term to move into multi-story buildings for modern industries. Even for the northern metropolis, there is a lot of space that they can accommodate these kind of buildings. For open air operators, until we have the multi-story buildings, we may need a buffer. As I said, we are sorting out a list of sites, and they would have to make an application before they can be accommodated there. But we will certainly conduct a review, and we hope that there will be a list of sites that can become available so that they can be accommodated in a more integrated manner in these sites. Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Brownfield operators provide very good support for the logistics trade. Until we have specific sites for them, we are resuming the brownfield sites, and there is a likelihood of the logistic chain being disrupted. My question for the administration is this: will you be formulating policies for logistics industry, and will you be providing alternative sites for these brownfield operators? Secretary. Yes, for logistics sites, we would like to take full advantage of the 70 hectares that have been set aside for port backup facilities and logistics, and they're in Hong Shui Kiu and Yuen Long South. And these are sites that have been identified for this very purpose. Now, even for port backup and logistics industries, they cover a very broad spectrum, and we like to liaise with the TLB and let them spearhead the exercise. Now, there are other planning works that are undergoing, Pingche and Taguling, and in the early part of next year, we hope that we will be able to come to the council with the funding proposal to start the Longhu Town and Tuen Mun West studies. That there are coastal frontages, and it is suitable for logistics industry. They are fit for purpose. We hope that there will be more sites of this nature, and the TLB can have their own policy considerations. Mr. Ben Chan. Madam Deputy, thank you. Warehousing logistics sites, it is hard to get them even if you have money. The compensation may not be of help, but the presidency said on July 1st that Hong Kong should maintain the advantages in aviation and logistics. Now, without warehouses, how on earth can we maintain the advantages? My question for the administration is this: the brownfield sites will be resumed. It will be hard for them to be relocated elsewhere. Will the government be relaxing the application for warehouses? Can there be further relaxation? Or if anything, the government can release more land for warehousing purposes. Like Mr. would now propose that green belts can be released for warehousing purposes? Will the administration be more direct in her reply? Secretary, about relaxing the application, as I said in the principal reply, over the years we have assisted 20 or so brownfield operators, and we have the coordination with the various departments, and applications have been relaxed. As I said, we are consolidating the list of land to facilitate application. So the idea is, with this list of sites becoming available, we will be discussing with the Town Planning Board regarding the guidelines for application. We hope that there will be some amendments to facilitate the brownfield operators so they don't have to be in an uncertain situation. So with this list and the relaxation of the application criteria, this would help. As regards the green belts and the use thereof, as I said in answer to an earlier question, we are still examining or reviewing the remaining 8,000 green belt sites. We're also reviewing the farmland. Work is in hand. Certainly, if there is land available, we will be prepared to release it for use. Mr. Kenneth Lau, Madam Deputy, in Yunlong Hosui, there are 5 sites or 69 hectares that will be used for development of multi-story buildings, and 30% of the floor space that will be for the brownfield operators. 90% of the brownfield sites are being used, providing more than 50,000 job opportunities. Now, the government is releasing such a small amount of land. I'm sure that the demand will outstrip supply, and a lot of operators will have to fold, and some may be relocating outside of Hong Kong. Will the administration be building themselves these multi-story buildings for modern industries? Secretary, Mr. Lau talked about the first batch of the sites for multi-story building for modern industries. We're talking about 11 hectares there. That's only the first batch. And in total, we have about 70 hectares in this category. Mr. Lau asked whether we will have to count on the market forces. Now, we will consider this, but there is a division of work. Now, in the first batch, we're talking about the modern logistics and vehicle repairing. In our earlier communications, these kind of sectors would attract some investment. For construction, trade, and recycling, the investment return may be smaller, and it is more likely for the government to step in these areas.
Third question, Ms. Maggie Chen. The National 14th Five-Year Plan acknowledges the positioning of Hong Kong's development into leading centres in 8 key areas, and the Centre for International Legal and Dispute Resolution Services in the Asia-Pacific region is one of them. However, there are views pointing out that the government has not placed strong emphasis on nurturing solicitors and practicing barristers of local small and medium-sized law firms, as well as their on-the-job training, highlighting the inadequate efforts made to foster quality development of local legal talents, and resulting in more emphasis being placed on competing for talents and less emphasis being placed on retention of talents. In this connection, would the government inform this council, 1, whether the Department of Justice has grasped the current number of local university programs and on-the-job training courses that are related to arbitration, mediation, international legal and dispute resolution services, and whether it has determined, through precise studies, the target number of local relevant talents to be trained, if so, of the relevant data. 2, whether DFJ has formulated specific policy initiatives to train solicitors and practicing barristers of small and medium-sized law firms in Hong Kong, and to retain local legal professionals and build a talent pool so as to provide an impetus to build Hong Kong into a center for international legal and dispute resolution services in the Asia-Pacific region. And 3, further to the launch of Law Tech Fund. In 2020, it has considered launching Law Tech Fund 2.0 to provide a subsidy of not less than $50,000 for each small and medium-sized law firm with no more than 5 partners in barristers' chamber with unlimited number of barristers so as to assist them in arranging for their staff to attend relevant law tech training, if so of the details. Secretary for Justice. Madam Deputy, the National 14th Five-Year Plan and the Outline Development Plan for the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area establishes Hong Kong's position as an international legal and dispute resolution services center in the Asia-Pacific region. The soon-to-be-established International Organization for Mediation Preparatory Office in Hong Kong further manifests the country's support for consolidating Hong Kong's development advantages in this regard. The DFJ has been implementing various initiatives and new policies to foster an environment conducive to the professional development of the legal sector and create opportunities for them while attracting more international legal and dispute resolution talents to Hong Kong. We will continue to enhance the local legal professionals' competitiveness in Hong Kong and beyond, as well as to encourage those interested to join the legal profession. The replies to the respective parts of the question are as follows. Number 1, there are 3 universities in Hong Kong offering law degree programs and postgraduate Certificate in Laws or PCLL. According to public information, there are over 35 such programs being offered, which contain dispute resolution and international law related courses. The Standing Committee on Legal Education and Training, or SCLET, established under Section 74A of the Legal Practitioners Ordinance, or CAP 159, is entrusted to keep under review the legal education and training in Hong Kong, monitor vocational training of prospective legal practitioners, collect and disseminate relevant legal education and training materials, and make recommendations on related matters. In relation to on-the-job training, both the Law Society and representatives of the DFJ also sit on that committee. In relation to on-the-job training, both the Law Society of Hong Kong and the Hong Kong Bar Association have established committees responsible for reviewing legal professional development and continuing education. One of the functions of its Standing Committee on Professional Standards and Development of the Law Society of Hong Kong is to formulate professional development courses, whereas the Hong Kong Bar Association examines related matters through its Standing Committee on Legal Education and Professional Development. DFJ has always been supportive of the 2 legal professional bodies and SCLET, with members appointed by the Chief Executive in continuously reviewing and improving local legal education and professional training, thereby cultivating more outstanding legal talents for Hong Kong. Meanwhile, as arbitration, mediation, international law, and dispute resolution services are widely applicable and their application is not limited to legal professional or legal practitioners, it may not be suitable to set a target number for training of talents. In fact, relevant knowledge can be applied to various sectors. For example, the education sector, the medical services sector, and frontline law enforcement officers would require knowledge and training on mediation. Part 2. DFJ has all along been attaching great importance to the nurturing of legal talents, including solicitors of small and medium-sized law firms and practicing barristers in Hong Kong. We are aware that according to statistics from the Law Society of Hong Kong, nearly 90% of law firms in Hong Kong are sole proprietorships or consist of no more than 5 partners. Hence, in formulating and introducing policies, DFJ has always been taking into account the needs of small and medium-sized law firms. In fact, over the past 10 years, the number of solicitors with practicing certificates in Hong Kong has increased significantly from over 7,000 in 2012 to over 11,000 in 2021. DFJ will continue to implement various initiatives to consolidate and enhance Hong Kong's position
as an international legal and dispute resolution services center in the Asia-Pacific region. Specific examples include the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area Legal Professional Examination, which enables Hong Kong legal practitioners who pass the examination and after completing the training and passing the interview to apply for a lawyer's practice certificate GPA to handle specific civil and commercial legal matters to which the mainland law applies in 9 GPA cities. This initiative has opened up the vast opportunities of the GPA market, in particular for small and medium-sized law firms and practicing barristers. Moreover, DOJ has been continuously strengthening the competitiveness of Hong Kong's legal infrastructure, providing a broader platform for the sector, including small and medium-sized law firms, to expand the provision of professional services. Taking the recently enacted mainland judgments in civil and commercial matters reciprocal enforcement ordinance as an example, DOJ will be holding a seminar later today on the new mechanism with a view to facilitating the sector in better understanding the specifics of the ordinance and being well prepared for the implementation of the new mechanism in future. I must emphasize, DOJ encourages the legal sector to proactively align with national development to contribute to the consolidation of Hong Kong's status as an international legal and dispute resolution services center. We understand that legal practitioners of small and medium-sized law firms may have special needs in professional development, and we will continue to listen to the sector's views and provide appropriate assistance, including to continue organizing or co-organizing with stakeholders various capacity-building activities, and to provide barristers and solicitors with less than 5 years post-admission experience to participate in DOJ's civil law and prosecution work through the understudy program, etc. Part 3 of the question. The government established the Law Tech Fund under the second round of the Anti-Epidemic Fund in 2020, providing each law firm chamber with a sum of up to 50,000 Hong Kong dollars by way of reimbursement so as to assist some small and medium-sized law firms and barristers' chambers in procuring and upgrading information technology system and arranging for their employees to attend law tech training in face of the challenges to their practice brought about by the pandemic and the anti-epidemic measures. Having extended the application deadline twice, over 500 applications were received, accounting for more than 70% of the targeted small and medium-sized law firms and barristers' chambers in Hong Kong. Besides, DOJ has utilized the remaining funds of about 15.7 million Hong Kong dollars from the Law Tech Fund to set up the Hong Kong Legal Cloud Fund, or the Cloud Fund, for eligible local legal and dispute resolution professionals, including solicitors and barristers, to subscribe to the Hong Kong Legal Cloud free of charge for up to 3 years. EBRAM, International Online Dispute Resolution Center, or EBRAM, was selected to provide a cloud service for the sector. Since the launch of the cloud service in March this year, EBRAM has been providing secure, reliable, and affordable data storage services for the local legal and dispute resolution sector. DOJ encourages the legal and dispute resolution sector to make use of the cloud fund and be proactive in applying law tech and will continue to keep in view other law tech related needs of the sector and provide assistance as appropriate. Thank you. Ms. Maggie Chan, well, according to the S for J just now, well, it paints a very rosy picture, but then it shows that, well, with the small government and big market approach, and also some of the mainland policies, for example, Hong Kong legal practitioners can also practice in a GBA, have been included in his main reply. So it's not just a policy led by the Hong Kong SAR. My question is, well, just now, he painted a very rosy picture, and still, I found it hard to understand how many people will be trained up under the program and how we can really support the small to medium-sized law firms and also practicing barristers. And also, the question also talk about EBRAM, International Online Dispute Resolution Center, as referred to by the SFJ. All right, they've already got no more than $150 million to set up this cloud service. So I'd like to know, well, in handling, so how many cases have been dealt with by EBRAM? And also for the Hong Kong legal practitioners using this platform, what is the utilization rate in order to train up more talents for Hong Kong? Secretary. Thank you, Ms. Chen, for your question. Let me try and answer the last part of the question with regard to EBRAM's cloud service and also for the International Dispute Resolution Service. Well, EBRAM has set up this legal cloud fund. This is the first ever fund for storage of data being introduced in Hong Kong. And if I remember it correctly, it was first launched on the 1st of March. And as at the end of November this year, over 500 users have already subscribed to the service. With regard to EBRAM, back in 2019, under the program on online dispute resolution service, well, starting from June that year, we already introduced the multi-stage online dispute resolution service so that for those who are involved in disputes and they'd like to resolve the dispute online, and the amount involved was not substantial. And as at middle of this year, we have received over 500 inquiries, and some 27 cases have been resolved, and over 100 arbitrators and mediators have been involved, and they've also completed the online training program. As to the question raised by Ms. Chen earlier, I'd like to highlight this. Well, we have to look at it macroscopically because we do have the responsibility to align with our national development. And as solicitors and barristers from small and medium-sized law firms, one of the important tasks is to broaden the scope of practice. Because in the past, we were confined to practicing in Hong Kong, but then because of the development in the GBA, our scope of practice would be broadened very substantially. And also precisely because of this reason, we have been very active in promoting and also assisting our legal practitioners so that they can be involved in this program. And therefore, in the policy address, we have already set out that we have set up a task force on GBA, and more will be done in this area. So I hope that you'd understand that we are not just painting a rosy picture. In fact, we are creating more opportunities under this plan for legal talents, including those from the small and medium-sized law firms. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Lam San Kang. My apologies, Madam Deputy. Thank you, Ms. Maggie Chen, for raising this oral question. Well, for legal talent training, as the Secretary said, we have 3 universities, including the Hong Kong U, the Poly U, as well as the Chinese U. But then the examination criteria are different, and therefore the quality of the graduates would differ. And I've received some complaints from some lawyers. They said that the virtual education of some of the practicing lawyers are problematic. For example, for them who have completed the 4-year training, well, up to half of the graduates have not been able to be enrolled into the 5th year program, that is the PCLL training. And that would be a waste of taxpayers' money as well as universities' resources. They have completed 4 years of legal training, and these students and their families would be greatly disappointed and depressed. And some of the aspiring candidates, they are quality students and they don't want to be enrolled into law degree programs. And that would be an even greater waste of the talent pool in Hong Kong. And we have this SELET, which is a statutory body responsible for education and training of legal talents. I don't need to repeat the functions of this committee. Well, in 2018, the Standing Committee published the final report on training of legal education and training, and it suggested that we should unify the examination for practicing lawyers. And 4 years has elapsed, and yet nothing has been done about it. One of the universities has been very uncooperative, and they said that academic autonomy would be one of the reasons why they would not be prepared to do that under the report, given the fact that DFJ and has representatives sitting on that standing committee. Why can't we unify the practicing examination for lawyers? All right, you have already asked your question. So please finish as soon as possible. Just a couple of sentences, Madam Deputy. Well, for the university's law education program, have they also covered the Constitution as well as the basic law? And if none, then they would have to do so as soon as possible, and that should also become the essential credit or subject. Yes, under the current rules of procedure, only one follow-up questions would be allowed. Please understand that. Secretary for Justice. Yes, as Mr. Lam has pointed out, in this regard, we have to leave it to the Standing Committee on Legal Education and Training, that is the SCLET, to deal with it according to the latest information with regard to the examination standards of the 3 universities. Well, in May 2020, the Law Society has already submitted a position paper to the SCLET on its initial thoughts on unifying the examination, and according to the Law Society's position paper, upon completing the professional course, they would also have to pass a standardized professional examination before they can be allowed to practice. And as the 2nd of December 2022, the Law Society has not been able to really sort out the details with regard to the criteria for taking the examination and so on. No specific proposals have come from the Law Society so far, and therefore we are having this discussion at the professional level. We understand that this subject has been there for years, and when I was the chair of the Bar Association, I was already aware of this discussion. But then through the SCLET, in particular when the DFJ is represented on that, we will continue to keep under a close review of this. And it was also mentioned that after completing the 4-year law degree program for the 5th year PCLL program, not everybody can be enrolled into that, and it's a waste of resources. My simple reply to this is, well, the reason why we have this law degree program doesn't mean that all graduates will have to become practicing lawyers, because once you complete a law degree program, we can see that many successful candidates or graduates can also join the government, and they can also make full use of their legal knowledge in other areas, and therefore this is also something that we should be concerned about. So that's all I'd like to say so for the time being. Yes, Ms. Lydian Kwok. Thank you, Madam Deputy. The Secretary said that in Hong Kong, actually there are already many law degree programs, and they have already trained up many people who have been able to join the legal profession after completing the PCLL. Back in 2012, we had 7,000, and by 2021, we have already got over 11,000. It shows that, well, the competition faced by the legal profession has been very fierce. And also for young lawyers, because of their limited experience and expertise, they are facing a lot of challenges. And therefore, on this, can the government inform this council whether or not there are policies or plans to provide assistance to these young practicing lawyers so that they be able to develop their professional potential, so that they can have more room for development in the profession? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kwok. We have to look at it from 2 levels. First, as I said, we hope to create more opportunities. Well, just now I referred to the GBA plan, and it's a very good example. Secondly, we would also have to create a very good legal environment, because as I said in the main reply, we have enhanced our dispute resolution legislation, and also our collaboration on certain civil matters with the mainland. That would also create more opportunities for our legal professionals. Well, on the legal profession, well, the DFJ has already done quite a lot of work in order to provide support for young solicitors and barristers. We have this training program under which for young lawyers, including both solicitors and barristers, they can participate in DFJ civil law and prosecution work through this understudy program. And also, so long as they have 1 year of post-graduation or post-admission practice, they can undergo this training on criminal prosecution, and upon completion of that program, there would be a special assessment program or system, so that there would be a list. After they have been placed on the list, they can also take part in prosecution work, and there are also professional exchange programs, so that for legal professionals in private practice, they can come to the DFJ to work for a period of time. And the purpose is to enable these young practicing lawyers to have actual on-the-job training and more practice. So as far as possible, we have come up with different plans and programs to provide assistance to them so that they can have a more on-the-job practice. Ms. Nixie Lam, well, Secretary, I'd like to know more about the GPA legal professional examination. It's been in place for 2 years, and over 400 legal practitioners have passed the examination, and they can practice in 9 GPA cities. Still, they are not located there, and therefore they may not have a very good understanding of what is happening in those cities. So with regard to Hong Kong legal professionals taking that examination, what kind of training will you offer to them, and also what kind of support will you give them? Thank you. Well, if you look at the system itself, the DFJ has already signed this agreement with the Supreme People's Court, and there has been this summary on the agreements reached between the two jurisdictions, so that for candidates that who have passed this examination, they can also be given training on practicing in the GPA cities. And also, we have also worked with different ministries and departments. For example, in August this year, Shenzhen's Law Society and also the Qianhai Law Society have also set up service centers in Shenzhen, so that for interested legal practitioners, they can also get guidelines. And also on the 25th of June, the Guangdong Provincial Law Society has also organized this online service for interested legal practitioners, so that they'd be able to find opportunities to practice on the mainland. So these are referral services.
Question number 4, Ms. Carmen Kan. Madam Deputy, there are views that faced with the trend of an aging population and population flows, the current demographic structure in Hong Kong is quite different from the projection made in Report of Population Policy Strategies and Initiatives formulated in 2015. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, whether it has assessed if the policy objectives put forward by the Steering Committee on Population Policy in 2013 have been achieved since the implementation of the recommendations set out in the report? If it has assessed and the outcome is in the affirmative of the details, if the assessment outcome is in the negative, the areas of the objectives that have not been achieved. 2, whether it has plans to set up a high-level committee to study and update the population policy, as well as put forth a new population policy based on the data collected in the 2021 population census, the prevailing social circumstances, and the medium to long-term future development needs, if so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. And 3, apart from the existing policies of the government's measures in place to boost the fertility rate within a short period, such as whether it will consider introducing a progressive child tax allowance and taking the lead in implementing family-friendly working arrangements. Secretary for Labour and Welfare. Madam Deputy, with the aim to develop and nurture a population that will continuously support and drive Hong Kong's socio-economic development as Asia's world city, and to engender a socially inclusive and cohesive society that allows individuals to realize their potential with a view to attaining quality life for all residents and families, the government released a report on population policy, strategies and initiatives in 2015. It set out the action agenda covering some 50 specific initiatives under various policy areas and policy bureaus, including economic development, education, training, housing, labor and welfare, immigration policy, etc. In response to members' question, I give the reply on behalf of the government as follows. First, during the 4th term as our government, all the initiatives announced in the report have been fully implemented by the relevant bureaus and departments. The relevant initiatives help achieve the objectives set out in the report and lay the foundation for subsequent work, and the government has not made further assessment on the effectiveness thereafter. Second, as pointed out by the Chief Executive in his 2022 policy address, the world was undergoing profound changes unseen in a century. The pandemic is not under control, and global economic outlook has worsened, and with trade disputes and geopolitical tensions, government should give full play to the distinctive advantages of enjoying strong support of the motherland and being closely connected to the world, and capitalize on their strengths and grasp the huge opportunities brought about by one country, two systems for betterment of Hong Kong's economic and social development and people's development. Based on this analysis and assessment, and the current situation in Hong Kong with a vision for the future, the chief executive drew a blueprint for Hong Kong's development, which covered an extensive range of policy initiatives. For instance, on the premises of nurturing local talents and safeguarding local employment, we will compete for talents more aggressively, including the launch of a non-employment-tied top talent pass scheme to attract individuals whose annual salaries reach a certain level and graduates from the world's top 100 universities. We will also enhance our talent admission schemes to meet the shortfall in labor force, enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness for future economic and social development. While these measures are not put forth simply from the perspective of population policy, we will also have the effect of optimizing our demographic structure and raise the quality of our workforce. Bureaus will proactively follow up on the CE's plan, and the government currently has no plan to set up a specific committee on population policy. The decision to raise a family or otherwise hinges upon a number of factors, including personal preference, lifestyle, economic and social conditions. While childbearing is a major family decision which the government cannot intervene, the government has put in place a number of family-friendly measures to encourage families to have children, and they include support for parents for child raising. The child allowance under salaries tax have been increased to 120,000 since the year of assessment 2018-19, representing an increase of over 7% compared to the year of assessment 2014-15. With the kindergarten education scheme introduced in 2017-18, about 90% of half-day kindergartens are free, while the school fees for whole-day kindergartens are maintained at a low level. Families with financial needs may apply for fee remission. The Education Bureau has regularized the provision of student grants starting from 2020-21 school year. All students studying in secondary day schools, primary schools, and special schools, as well as kindergartens, are provided with a student grant of $2,500 every school year to alleviate parents' burden in education expenses. Second, enhanced childcare services. To further enhance day childcare services, the SWD plans to set up 9 aided standalone childcare centers providing 800 additional places in the coming 2 to 3 years, and to increase aided CCC places through procurement of premises. SWD has also increased the subsidy level of CCC service, enhanced the manning ratio of childcare workers, and strengthened supervisory support. SWD has also implemented a host of enhancement measures for the after-school care program for primary school students, including adding 2,500 fully waiving subsidy places, relaxing application eligibility, and increasing the subsidy level and streamlining means tests. And apart from full fee waiving and half fee reduction, 1/3 fee reduction has been introduced to support more low-income families. 3. Support for parents with newborn babies. Implemented in 2019-2020 respectively, the 5-day statutory paternity leave and 14-week statutory maternity leave enable eligible employees to spend more time with and take better care of their newborn babies, and continue to support and protect breastfeeding by actively promoting the adoption of breastfeeding-friendly workplace and premises policy. As a good employer, the government is committed to providing a family-friendly working environment to its employees. The government has implemented 5-day weeks initiative by phases starting from 2006 to improve the quality of civil service family life without compromising the level and efficiency of public services or incurring additional costs to taxpayers. We'll continue to encourage departments which have not yet fully implemented 5-day week to explore the feasibility of migrating more staff to 5-day week in a pragmatic manner. Besides taking into account actual operational needs, heads of department may arrange flexible attendance hours and approve no-pay leave to meet their needs. And 5, encourage employers to implement family-friendly employment practices, including flexible work environments, such as flexible working hours, 5-day week, and also remote work or hybrid work model. Additional leave benefit to cater for family needs such as parental leave, offer physical support in childcare services, facilities and work arrangements for lactating employees, etc. These measures help employees meet their needs at different stages of life. Ms. Carmen Ken. Madam Deputy, judging from the administration's reply, the government has no plan to set up a specific committee on population policy to renew the relevant policies and to review whether the population policies made in 2015 are still appropriate. In the past 8 years, a lot has changed in Hong Kong, and policy, population policy, and also attraction for talents should not be mixed. G19 in September made this proposal to the C. Now, in Hong Kong, people marry late and birth rate is low, and we face a more situation than other places. In 2021, the overall birth rate was only 0.77%. That means the fertility rate of a woman is less than 1. So, according to the administration, these talent policies are not from the perspective of a population policy. It just want to enhance the quality of our workforce. So why isn't the government going to set up a specific committee on population policy? Secretary, thank you. As mentioned in my main reply, in 2022 policy address, the chief executive announced a number of measures, including the Top Talent Pass scheme, and to nurture our own talents. There are a number of measures in this policy address targeting at the needs of our population. So the administration has taken into account all these factors, and so far we don't have any plan to set up a specific committee on population policy. Thank you. Dr. Hui Simon Lee. Thank you, Madam Deputy. The Labour and Welfare Bureau is rather laid back and is just leave everything to fate. We are not happy with that. Using this approach, will not be able to achieve the targets set by the chief executive in his policy address. As mentioned by Ms. Carmen Khan, people in Hong Kong tend to marry late, and our birth rate is much lower than other places. The overall fertility rate in 2021 was only 0.77%, the lowest amount. And then the first time of marriage for women in Hong Kong rose from 26.2 to 30.6 years, and the first time of a childbearing dropped. The age rose from 28.1 years to 32.6 years. I'd like to know whether the government has done any in-depth study. Now, I understand that there are a number of factors, but the government should have a more scientific study to find out the reasons for this phenomenon in order to launch targeted measures to encourage birth rate in Hong Kong. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Lee, for your question. This term of government adopts a proactive approach in implementing policies. We are result-oriented. I understand the members think that we need to plan ahead in view of our demographic changes. The government has launched policy initiatives on talents in this regard, and whether people want to raise a family hinges upon a lot of factors. Myself, as a father, I have a child. But then Hong Kong is indeed one of the places with the lowest birth rate. But this is not unique to Hong Kong. The same applies to Singapore and South Korea. Many jurisdictions face similar problems. We have lots of measures to encourage women of the right age to give birth. For instance, we have extended our statutory maternity leave to 14 weeks, and the government is subsidizing employers for the last 4 weeks of maternity leave, and the subsidy ceiling is $80,000. These measures target at grassroots women so that they can be more assured in raising a family and continue with their jobs. The government will use its measures, and together with efforts from the community, we hope to boost the fertility rate. Now, this fertility rate of 0.77% has a lot to do with the COVID pandemic. Before that, the rate stood at around 1%. So after the pandemic is put under control, I expect an increase in this percentage. Mr. Lam and Kwong, while it is for families to decide whether they want to have children, now I think we can help to address some of the concerns. Parents have to spend time with their children, and I think this is their concern. We've asked for increase in community nanny services. I understand that you have increased childcare services according to the main reply, but what about subsidy or tax concessions for employing helpers? Now, would the government consider providing parental leave so that parents can work flexibly and choose a different mode of work arrangements to better take care of their children? Now, when it comes to helping young parents, we didn't used to have paternity leave. It was first launched in the civil service. I was among the first to enjoy that. And then we now have a 5-day statutory paternity leave. And then paid maternity leave has been extended to 14 weeks, as I said just now. As for parental leave, we may not want to legislate on that at this moment, but we should encourage companies to provide parental leave for the purpose of retaining manpower. Thank you. Ms. Dr. Tan Yuehang. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I agree with Ms. Carmen Kan that the government should set up a high-level committee to consider and also update our population policy. We need an organization to coordinate our population policy. The organization should be responsible for knowing the demographic situation and analyze the changes. Now we must have a policy to support elderly needs and health care and various needs of the community. So there should, of course, there are departments responsible for these areas. We should not just set up a specific committee only. So I'd like to ask the administration on the setting up of a department, a high-level committee to review our population policy. What is the government's response to this? Thank you, Dr. Tang, for your question. In my main reply, I said that in the Chief Executive's policy address, when it comes to the future development of Hong Kong, such as attracting talents and also nurturing our own talents and care for our elderly and women welfare, there are a number of policy initiatives. At this point, we have no plan to set up a specific committee on population policy. We have no intention to set up a specific department at this point, but that doesn't mean that we are not looking at our demographic structure and our future development. Take elderly care as an example. We do understand that we have 1.45 elderly persons in Hong Kong, accounting for close to 20% of our elderly. Very soon, the figure will grow to 1.9 million, accounting for 1/4 of our population. So we must ensure we can make good use of sharing technology so that our elderly persons can age in place. We have targeted measures to do this. So in formulating policies, the demographic structure is always something we will consider. Mr. Chen Puyin, since the last population policy, a lot of changes happen in Hong Kong, including the GBA development and also the COVID-19, and so changes in our demographic structure. According to the reply of the Secretary, whether to raise a family is a personal decision. I'd like to know what is the government's view on whether the government should steer a debate of policy, of a population policy, so that we can forge a consensus in the community, so that we can adjust our policies to suit new developments. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. Mr. Chen just mentioned a very wide range of population issues. As I said in the policy address, there are targeted measures to attract talents, to address the problem of a manpower shrinkage. We want to attract top-notch talent to come to Hong Kong. The government may, by means of a relaxation and innovation in policies, attract quality talents to Hong Kong. As for the birth rate or fertility rate, this is not just about government policies. We have launched a number of measures such as tax concessions, after-school childcare, etc. This is a complicated decision. Many cities and jurisdictions face the problem of a low birth rate. So the problem is not unique to Hong Kong. I look forward to further discussion, and if there are measures that can encourage people to have more children, we are happy to consider and collaborate with the community. Mr. Tang Fei, as said by the Secretary, the population policy in 2015 was already implemented, and in 2017 there was a report on population projection covering 2016 to 2066. There will be a reduction of 1.2 million, and there will only be population inflow of $900,000, and then it is an inevitable trend that our population will fall. So even before the COVID pandemic, there was already the projection that our population will age and also reduce. So I'd like to know, in terms of population policy, will it focus on natural births or inflow of population? Secretary, I think it's clear from our projection that we have to face challenges associated with an aging population. And our labor force also peaked in 2018, and it will continue to shrink in the future. So because of our shrinking workforce, and in particular, the rate was particularly sharp during the pandemic, so we would have to attract talents from overseas or from the mainland to tackle this problem. Now, to address challenges associated with an aging population, this is not just about our birth rate. Of course, with a higher birth rate, it may help. The question is how we can fully unleash the potential of our elderly population. We have seen elderly persons in their 60s, 70s, or even 90s still very creative and energetic. So we have to fully utilize the potential of our elderly persons, so capable, wise elders can continue to contribute to society. Thank you.
Question number 5, Mr. Leung Man Kwong. Thank you, Madam Deputy. The Food and Environmental Hygiene Department announced earlier that the overall rodent infestation rate, RIR, for the whole year of 2021 was 3.1% and indicated that the RIR level showed that rodent infestation in public areas was not extensive. However, there are views pointing out that the RIR may not be able to reflect the actual situation, and my ward office often receives complaints involving rodent infestation in public housing estates. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, of the number of complaints involving rodent infestation in public housing estates received, as well as the number of rodents caught in the estates across the territory by the government in the past 3 years? 2, whether currently the cleansing service contracts awarded by the Housing Department for PHEs have stipulated the weighting of and indicators for the rodent prevention and control work regarding housing estates with serious problem, whether the department would deploy additional resources to handle it. If so, the details, if not the reasons for that. And 3, whether currently the Hong Kong Housing Authority has included rodent guards as standard installations in newly built housing estates and courts. If so, of the details, if not the reasons for that. Secretary for Housing. The consolidated reply to the question raised by Mr. Long Man Kwong is as follows. The Hong Kong Housing Authority, or HA, has all along been attaching great importance to hygiene condition in public rental housing estates, or PRH, and providing full support to the cleaning operation and pest control work of the government through strengthening regular cleaning work in its PRH estates, focusing efforts in tackling hygiene black spots in the estates and enhancing publicity and education. For rodent control, the HA targets the 3 survival conditions of rodents, namely food harborage and passages, and tackles the problem by eliminating food sources, removing hiding places, and blocking the dispersal routes of rodents. HA will adopt a multi-pronged strategy in handling hygiene black spots in PRH estates by strengthening cleaning and implementing rodent control work, including placing additional rodenticides and rodent cage traps at locations with more serious rodent infestation. Apart from referring to the government's rodent infestation rate, the HA will also make reference to the number of complaints on rodent infestation, observation during rodent inspections, as well as the views of the local community and stakeholders, with a view to monitoring the situation of rodent infestation and assessing the effectiveness of rodent prevention and control. HA will take into account the cause and circumstances of the rodent infestation problems of individual estates and adopt targeted prevention and control measures. If need be, HA estate staff will invite other departments with professional knowledge, such as the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department, to conduct joint inspections to the estates for reviewing the pest and rodent prevention and control work. For rodent infestation problem in PRH estates, we noticed that some of the problems were caused by various misdeeds of those who feed animals in the estate and dump refuse illegally, including food waste and other kinds of refuse, and shop tenants who dispose of food waste improperly. And these are very much to do with the hygiene condition of PRH. PRH estates belong to everyone. Maintaining a good estate environment and hygiene relies on the cooperation of both residents and shop tenants through various publicity channels such as the estate newsletters, housing channel, posters, promotional leaflets, etc. HA will step up publicity to raise residents' awareness on environmental hygiene as well as rodent prevention and control, appeal to residents and shop tenants to maintain a clean and hygienic environment, and handle refuse and abandoned articles properly. We also conduct joint cleaning operations with various stakeholders, including market owners, so as to eliminate rodent infestation together. In the past 3 years, the number of rodent reports received in HA's PRH estates were 760, 740, and 700, respectively. HA will continue to strengthen anti-rodent work in its estates, implement estate cleaning campaign, and strengthen pest and rodent prevention and control in priority estates by phases. When HA implemented anti-rodent operations in 80 priority estates in 2021-22 and 20 priority estates from May to July 2022, the number of rodents caught were 2,560 and 670, respectively. Since other owners and venue managing departments within the boundary of PRH estates have also participated in anti-rodent work, we do not keep the total number of rodents caught within the boundary of PRH estates. The scope of HA's existing cleansing service contracts and property service contracts for PRH estates include daily pest and rodent prevention and control work with details listed in their work schedules. According to the contract requirement, apart from performing daily cleansing work, the contractors are also required to perform regular pest and rodent prevention and control in public areas of estates, including patrolling all potential black spots with rodent nuisance within estate boundary, application of pesticides, rodenticides, or other appropriate means to perform pest and rodent prevention control. In order to ensure the effectiveness of their work, the contractors are required to report the progress to estate officers periodically. If need be, for example, when the rodent problem is aggravated by the works of underground or market nearby, HA will also provide additional resources to the estates to install additional rodent disinfection facilities and procure additional rodent disinfestation services from professional pest control company in the private market, so as to intensify the rodent disinfection work and effectiveness. At locations with more serious rodent infestation, HA has been making use of technology such as implementing a trial scheme of network camera system with AI motion detectors to monitor rodent activities. And that also works during nighttime when there is rodent activity within the area under surveillance. Recording will start instantly, which improves the effectiveness. Given the satisfactory outcome of the trial scheme, we will continue to explore the application of new technologies and widen the scope of their use where appropriate. In addition, HA will also set up a nighttime patrol team on a trial basis at locations with more serious rodent infestation to strengthen rodent control work and patrol against illegal feeding. For new PRH development, HA has made reference to the circular letter titled Guidelines on Rodent-Proofing Design in New Buildings and Mosquito Rodent Prevention and Control Measures in Construction or Demolition Sites, issued by the Buildings Department in 2019, as well as the recommendations of the FEHD, and introduce the 2020 Design Guidelines on Rodent Control and Installations. They include using suitable materials to cover ventilation openings, avoid placing planters near refuse collection points, laying steel wire mesh at drainage point of planters, locating the vertical pipes inside pipe ducts or rooms in order to prevent rodents from accessing the residential floor along the pipes. And if the pipes have to be installed on external wall, rodent guards will be installed at appropriate locations, and we'll continue to take forward our work in this regard. Mr. Lau Meng Kwong. Thank you, Madam Deputy. First of all, I need to acknowledge the effort of the government, including the HD staff, in tackling rodent infestation. According to the indicators set out in this year's policy address, the HA will need to meet at least conduct at least 500 joint operations with stakeholders in PRH estates. So we have an indicator to tackle rodent infestation. The most important stakeholder, however, is the residents of the PRH estates. Very often when I received complaints in the past, I had to personally deal with the problem, because at the moment the service contracts do not stipulate the contract staff's duties in tackling rodent infestation within the estate boundary. So my question is, will the contracts be revised? Can a dedicated item be set up so as to tackle the problem of rodents entering residential premises? About rodents entering residential premises, we are aware of the situation. It has to do with the habits of residents, and in some cases, as we've heard before, there are units full of refuse causing rodent infestation of the unit as well as the neighboring units. The HD will focus on tackling these special cases. The HD will also discuss with the relevant tenants. If the tenant concerned is unable to dispose of the large amounts of waste, the family members will be contacted for assistance. In some cases, say if the tenant is an elderly person or is somebody with mobility issues, such that the tenant is unable to cleanse the flat on a regular basis, the Social Welfare Department will also be involved so that an assessment can be carried out, and that a joint effort will be made to tackle the problem. Of course, in these serious circumstances, if the flat is strewn with unhygienic items, the tenant will be subject to the deduction of points under the demerit system. And for the first scenario, 5 points will be deducted, followed by 7 points, and then 16 points at the maximum. So as you know, the demerit system is quite rigorous. Now, apart from estate managers, tenants can also contact district councillors, and we welcome more frequent communication with the housing department on more serious cases. Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Tackling the issue of rodent infestation is something on the plate of every government department. I think Mr. Lerman Kwon is being too gentle. The second question relates to government service contracts. The problem is the lowest bidder always wins, and hence we're unable to try out new technologies. My question is this: in the past 3 or 5 years, did the SAR government fine-tune the terms in the service contracts so as to address the issue of the lowest bidder wins? And also, for service providers, did the government encourage them to try out new technologies? If the winning bid price is too low, we're talking about a 30-50% price difference, we will not be able to eradicate rodents. So my question for the government is about the overall arrangements in relation to outsourced government service contracts. Now, about service contracts for outsourcing cleansing services, it's true that we should not have regard only the dollar sign but also service quality. And making wider use of technology is a good suggestion. As I said in my reply, the Housing Department has introduced a new technology to tackle rodent infestation. For example, we already have a CCTV system to prevent objects falling from height, and we're also trying out a new camera system to tackle rodent infestation, and this is especially effective in monitoring rodent activities at night time. For example, we can verify the routes of rodents so as to help us catch more rodents. So I agree with Mr. Stephen Ho in terms of the contract and future tender exercises in terms of giving weight to the different parts of the tender. We should encourage them to make wider use of technologies. Mr. Dr. Menu, I'd like to focus my question on PRH estates. I often receive complaints about tenants feeding rodents, and despite having cage traps put in place, the tenants will just remove all of them, saying that the rodents are kept by the tenant. Still, no deduction of points will be put in place. And for what you just said just now, for the TPS estates, they don't use the kind of technology. They just then for the estate management, they just give verbal warnings. The complaints are not addressed. So how does the housing department deal with PRH tenants living in TPS estates? For PRH tenants living in tenant purchase scheme estates, they are still subject to the point demerit system. I understand in TPS estates with owners corporations set up, if necessary, the FEHD regulations can be invoked to deal with serious rodent infestation problems. And if necessary, the Housing Department's representative sitting on the owners corporation can also offer advice from a professional angle to tackle rodent infestation. I'd like to emphasize, as per Dr. Manu's question, that some tenants are fond of feeding wild animals, including birds, rodents. They may have a good heart and they love the animals, but the undesirable outcome is that they leave behind debris of food. The food may be originally put there for birds and for other animals, but in the end, they exacerbate the problem of rodent infestation. So we do patrol and investigate into such behaviors. And we do have cases in which the tenants' points were deducted. Mr. Yang Wing-kit. Now, the Secretary explained the work of the Housing Department in this regard, but apart from the PRH estates with a serious rodent infestation problem, we also have estates managed by the Hong Kong Housing Society with equally serious problems, such as Longman Sand Estate. I often receive complaints from the residents. They question the government's work in tackling rodent infestation. Secretary referred to cases of PRH flats strewn with refuse, and that is just a broad brush. In many estates, the overall condition is clean and hygienic, and still there are signs of rodent infestation. So I'd like to ask about the resources for housing society to tackle rodent infestation. And second question, details of the work in tackling rodent infestation. Secretary, for housing societies, anti-rodent infestation work and statistics, I don't have them here. But all in all, there is communication between the Housing Department and Housing Society. After all, we manage the same kind of estates, and if our effort is effective, we do communicate with the Housing Society. Now, as the Honourable Member mentioned, Lokman Sen Chun, this estate in particular, I'll go back and I'll bring your view back and ask them to step up their effort. I talked about tenants' behavioral problems and so-called refuse flats, feeding of feral animals. I'm not putting the blame on residents. However, we do need a concerted effort in tackling rodent infestation. We work with the service contractors, FEHD, we deploy new technologies. We have a basket of measures as our strategy. But all in all, this reminder stands true. That is, we should make sure food waste is properly disposed of as an effective means of tackling rodent infestation. Ms. Soden Chow. Madam Deputy. Illegal feeding is one of the sources, and the butterfly estate in Tuen Mun is one classic example. I thank the Secretary for taking action after I reflected the situation to her. Still, the government should publicize the enforcement action and the outcome, and that some people have been arrested as a result. About the source of rodent infestation, I think you need to dispose of waste more frequently so as to tackle the problem at source. I just want to know if the Secretary has the determination to dispose of waste at the estates more frequently. Thank you, Mr. Holden Chow. About your case in Butterfly Estate in Tuen Mun, my colleagues took swift action And we also discovered instances of illegal feeding of wild animals. And in the course of our enforcement action, we issued the fixed penalty tickets. Littering also involves illegal disposal of food waste, and we issued altogether 21 fixed penalty tickets. And under the FEHD regulations, each ticket attracts $1,500, and among the 9 cases, 5 of them had 5 points deducted, and 3 cases involved littering and illegal disposal or improper disposal of food waste. Depending on the circumstances, we also dispatch colleagues to conduct patrols, undercover operations to identify irregularities. At the same time, we're happy to maintain close communication with local representatives and district councillors. Say if you notice anything untoward in a particular estate, then I'll be happy to receive information from you so that we can take further action.
Last question seeking an oral reply. Mr. Chen Pui-leung. Thank you, Madam Deputy. There are views that among the young persons and minors committed to correctional facilities due to the movement of opposition to the proposed legislative amendments, that is, those persons in custody, many of them were affected by the social environment and fake news at the time and acted on impulse, thus going astray. Therefore, how to truly bring into play the combination of safe custody and rehabilitation for guiding and supporting these young persons in their reintegration into society is of vital importance. In this connection, will the government inform this council? 1. Of the number of those PIC, and among them, the number of persons who voluntarily participated in the de-radicalization rehabilitation programs, the progress and effectiveness of such programs, and whether measures are in place to encourage more of those PICs to participate in the programs. If so, of the details. If not, the reasons for that. 2. Given that the Correctional Services Department, or the CSD, is currently offering young persons in custody courses for taking the Hong Kong Diploma of Secondary Education Examination, or the Hong Kong DSE. But it has been reported that students' learning there has relatively more limitations. For example, not being able to access the internet for searching information and not being offered courses covering all Hong Kong DSE elective subjects by the correctional facilities. Of the number of those persons in custody who sat for DSE in each of the past 3 years, and whether the authorities will review and enhance the existing mechanism for learning in correctional facilities. And 3. As it is learned that among those persons in custody, there are quite a number of tertiary students, postgraduate students, and working young adults. While there are views that the vocational training currently provided by the CSD's industries and vocational training section has relatively less recognition, and that some of such vocational training is not keeping abreast of society. Whether the authorities will make corresponding adjustments to the vocational training provided for those persons in custody according to their education level, if so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. Secretary for Security. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Many young persons in custody, that is PICs, have been incited or influenced, leading them to go astray. This is particularly so for cases related to the black-clad violence. As long as they are genuinely willing to turn over a new leaf, we will not give up on them. To further assist these PICs in their rehabilitation, the CSD will step up its efforts in implementing services in various areas, such as education, psychological counseling, and employment, with a view to helping them re-establish positive values and equipping them for future reintegration into society. My reply to the question is as follows. 1. In recent years, quite a number of radical persons involved in serious offences have been admitted to correctional institutions, including 1,315 convicted persons involving black-clad violence cases, among which 345 of them are young persons under the age of 21. Having regard to their rehabilitation needs, the CSD has launched the Project Path and strives to assist them to rebuild positive values and face challenges, with a reference to the following 3 major rehabilitation directions. Firstly, on understanding Chinese history and national education. The CSD has launched an educational initiative called Understanding History is the Beginning of Knowledge. Through a diversified mode of learning, PICs can obtain a better understanding of our history and culture and enhance their sense of national identity. In line with the curriculum reform, the CSD has also strengthened moral and civic education, education on the basic law and the national security law, etc., to enhance young PICs' law-abiding awareness, thereby guiding them back on the right track. Secondly, on psychological reconstruction and re-establishment of values, the CSD launched a psychological counseling program named the Youth Lab in July this year, which helps young PICs through different psychological treatments undergo psychological rehabilitation and reconstruction, thereby enhancing their law-abiding awareness and ability to cope with adversity. The Change Lab, which commenced service on the 26th of October this year, provides community-based psychological counseling for young PICs after release to help them build up confidence and psychological resilience, overcoming difficulties and resisting temptations. Thirdly, life planning and rebuilding of family relationships. The CSD has launched the Project JET to provide more employment opportunities, including those in the GBA for young PICs and rehabilitated persons. Besides, professionals from different sectors have been invited to participate in life planning programs held in correctional institutions to assist PICs to prepare themselves for future employment and studies. Since the launch of the project's PATH in November 2021, as of 31st of October 2022, a total number of 677 PICs had participated in the project's PATH, of which 474 were convicted of offences related to the black-clad violence cases, amounting to around 75% of the total number of PICs relating to these cases. By observation of officers of the CSD, the project had satisfactory outcome in which positive responses were received, with participants actively joining the program. Thereby, their law-abiding awareness could be enhanced, their emotions could also be improved, and with them showing deep remorse towards their past misdeeds. Besides, for those released rehabilitated persons who participated in the program, there is so far no record of their subsequent conviction. 2. The CSD has all along been providing half-day education for young PICs under the age of 21 with certified teachers, and assisting eligible PICs to take different public examinations, including the Hong Kong Diploma of Secondary Education, that is HKDSE examination. Over the past 3 years, there were 9, 7, and 12 young PICs sitting for the HKDSE examination respectively. Having considered the learning ability, interest, and training duration of young PICs, as well as the resources of institutions, the CSD offers 4 core subjects, namely Chinese language, English language, mathematics, and citizenship and social development, as well as 2 elective subjects, namely tourism and hospitality studies and economics as institutions for young PICs. The CSD will review the choices of elective subjects from time to time to meet the learning needs of young PICs. Due to security considerations, PICs are not allowed to directly search for information via the internet. However, to strike a balance between facilitating the learning and the maintenance of security of our institutions, the CSD has set up the e-learning resources corners in correctional institutions in 2015 for PICs to access e-learning materials for distance learning courses. To further facilitate the learning, the CSD will launch an electronic learning platform, Learning on Demand, for them. By using a tablet computer connected with the intranet of the respective institution, a PIC can access the electronic learning materials in the system, which cover a variety of areas and are of different levels for self-learning. At present, the system provides learning materials for the secondary education curriculum, distance learning courses offered by the Hong Kong Metropolitan University, public examination including HKDSE, General Aptitude Putonghua examination, International English Language Testing System, etc. The contents will be updated to meet their needs. As for post-secondary education, the CSD and the Hong Kong Metropolitan University signed a Memorandum of Understanding on the 24th of October this year, with a view to providing more comprehensive support for those who wish to continue their studies during incarceration, including financial assistance, credit transfers, and program articulation. The CSD would assist PICs to return to school and continue their studies after release where feasible. 3. Currently, the CSD provides 13 vocational training courses for young PICs, covering courses of various industries such as business practice, image design, beauty care, coffee shop operation, etc. Arrangements will also be made for young PICs to sit for the relevant examinations held by the accreditation bodies to assist them to obtain market-accredited qualifications. The CSD will review the types and contents of various vocational training programs from time to time, having regard to the change in the background of PICs, the needs of the local employment market, the professional advice provided by external training bodies, etc. Recently, technological elements such as computer animation design, 3D design, computer graphics design, and practical 2D design have been incorporated into different vocational training programs. The CSD will continue to review and introduce new elements into vocational training courses and strive for obtaining certification for relevant training courses. Madam Deputy, the CSD will continue to actively promote diversified and appropriate services in facilitating the rehabilitation of PICs and the smooth reintegration into society after release. Thank you. Mr. Chan Pui-leung, concerning supervision of released PICs for young people released, the CSD will keep in touch with them during the supervisory period and make intervention if necessary. Does the CSD know the situation of their employment and study situation? Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Now, for rehabilitated persons under our supervision, we require them to take employment or study, and we do have knowledge of each and every case. Next, Ms. Lillian Kwok. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Just now, in the Secretary's reply, the government has provided a number of vocational training courses for PICs. There is the Project JET to help young people incarcerated to reintegrate into society. Now, in terms of employment, employers are still very reluctant to hire released persons. Now, the job markets in the coming few years will be uncertain. Rehabilitated persons will have a very difficult time finding jobs, which will affect their confidence in reintegrating into society. Now, can the Secretary tell us whether there are plans to support these people and also boost the confidence of employers to hire them? Secretary, thank you. The CSD attaches a lot of importance to the employment of PICs after release. There are many employers who are willing to hire them. We have a program called Caring Employers. Under the program, we have 470 companies offering different types of job opportunities for our released PICs. In year 2020, through the 2022, through the scheme, 800 jobs have been offered to our released persons. However, only 110 released persons applied for the jobs. There are abundant number of job opportunities. However, different people are interested in different types of jobs. If rehabilitated persons are willing to take on any job employment opportunities, there are abundant chances for them. And also, we are extending the scope of jobs covered. For example, INT-related jobs or even job opportunities in the GBA. Through the scheme, we want to match released or rehabilitated persons with these jobs and help them. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Since year 1998, the CSD has established the Rehabilitation Office to help rehabilitated persons. There are different units under the departments responsible for training and rehabilitation of released prisoners. Now, for young adults, their rehabilitation needs are very different from that of adults. For education, some convicted students have been expelled from schools. After release, and they are still of a schooling age. However, it is very difficult for them to find a school that is willing to take them on. In terms of transitioning from study to work, these people also face more challenges. Since the government attaches a lot of importance to youth development, will the government consider adding a unit for released youth under the CSD departments to enhance work to support young prisoners released? Under the rehabilitation unit, we have 4 groups, that is education, training, psychological, and rehabilitation. We don't have a unit called units for youth. However, we have a focus group to help rehabilitated youth, which is chaired by the Deputy Commissioner of the CSD. In terms of psychological services, supervision, comprehensive training, and employment, the group is responsible for devising better ways to help young people in terms of program design and also the types of job opportunities upon release, how we can reach out to more willing employers, and so on. The focus group would consolidate our resources to help rehabilitation work of young people. Ms. Lam So Wai. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. According to the Security Bureau's reply to the Council in October, now for among those who need to take legal responsibility after the Black Lives violence, there are 353 convicted people who are under the age of 18. Now, in October, there is a new program, that is the Change Lab, which has commenced service in October. Can the Secretary tell us more about this Change Lab, how it serves to help young people under the age of 18 to reintegrate into society? For rehabilitated person under the age of 18, we are helping them in several fronts. First of all, we would ask them whether they want to continue studying or join the job market. Now, recently, the academic qualification attained by PICs have increased. There are more tertiary students or even postgraduates. So we are working more with universities so that even when incarcerated, there will be accredited courses available for these PICs. We are working with the Metropolitan University to do that. And also, after release, the credits gained during incarceration would be recognized by the university for further articulation. In terms of employment, as I've mentioned, through the Project JET, some 470 employers have been involved in offering a number of jobs for young people. There are many types of jobs, including jobs requiring higher qualification, including INT jobs or even job opportunities on the mainland to meet different people's needs. Dr. Gary Zhang. Mr. Gary Zhang. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. In the reply, it mentioned that the CSD is working with the Metropolitan University and offering courses for incarcerated persons. There are many young people under incarceration who were university students as well. I understand that there are other universities which are also interested in giving help. And they are willing to work with the CSD to offer help to young people. So will the Secretary consider inviting more universities to help so that after the young people have learned a lesson, they can start again and join the society? Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Besides the Metropolitan University of Hong Kong, we are also trying to work with other universities. The Metropolitan University offers distinct distance learning. Now, for the credits gained under incarceration, we are trying to align them with other universities so that these credits would still be acknowledged upon release. And also, if the rehabilitated persons show remorse, we would help them to continue their study in their previous schools. Thank you. Dr. Simon Lee. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. the acceptance of society and its support are of key importance on whether young people can reintegrate into society. Will the government considers more programs like the Strive and Rise program and other mentorship programs to enrich its support for young people so that the government can be a guarantor to boost the confidence of employers in hiring released young people? Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. In terms of civil servants candidates, we would not be discriminative in terms of their background. As long as they fulfill our requirements, we would consider them. In terms of the academic qualification and also the interest and vision of young people under incarceration, we would offer them with job opportunities under the Project JET, so that when these young people are released from our institutions, they will have the necessary skills to be employed in the jobs that they want. Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Earlier on, the government mentioned that it would step up Chinese and national education for young people incarcerated because of the anti-extradition bill program, or even arrange exchange opportunities for these young people in the GBA. So what is the progress? Are there any institutions who are willing to take these young people on? Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. So far, we have received free enterprises job offerings for young people to work in the GBA. Because of the epidemic, the employment hasn't started yet. In terms of applying for a home entry permit and so on, for such difficulties, we would relay the information to the mainland counterparts and explain to them the situation of these young people so that they would be aware. We will follow up these cases. Thank you. Mr. Ronnick Chen. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. The main reply mentioned a lot of vocational training courses for young people. Now, as a piece of justice, I paid a visit to the Thailand Correctional Institution. It offers construction and manufacturing industry programs. Now, these employments are quite stable and secured for released persons. So will the Secretary ask the interest of the young people in custody and send them to the relevant correctional institutions for learning? There are different limitations in terms of the size of the correctional facility, as well as the facilities needed to offer such courses. So we will try to assess it case by case. If it is feasible, we will consider the application.
Government Bill, first reading. Companies Amendment Bill 2022. Second reading. Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. President, I move the second reading of the Companies Amendment Bill 2022. At present, the Companies Ordinance provides that a company must hold an annual general meeting within the prescribed time. A company may